Waratahs season review for 2019. I'm still going with these season reviews for the Super Rugby teams. I probably should have started them a wee bit earlier because we are already into the Rugby Championship, but I will get through all 15 teams at some point. I guess they're not going anywhere. So, Waratahs finished 12th, record of 6 wins and 10 losses. Not good enough for the playoffs. It was a bit of a dive. Kind of back to what we had seen in recent years, not the most recent year, but in years gone by with Daryl Gibson, and that they weren't able to get much of a result. They had a good season last year where they finished third, which was top of the Aussie Conference. They wouldn't have been third if it was a round robin, but still had a pretty good year. They had 9 wins, a draw, and 6 losses, so a pretty much 180 shift from how things went this year. And it wasn't all bad. There was a bit of off-the-field stuff which probably affected their season, but I'll have a look at that in the results as well. Go over what went well, what didn't go so well, and what we can perhaps look to from the Waratahs for next season. So we'll start with the good stuff because there was some good stuff there in that Waratahs season. 4th overall team for offloads, so they were able to play some exciting footy at times. Line-out winning percentage, they were 6th, so it's not top 3 or anything, but it's at the right end of the table. Winning opposition line-out was 2nd, so they were doing good things at set-piece time, at least the line-out. 3rd overall for tackles made, although that's not necessarily a good thing if you're having to make so many tackles. It means the opposition does have the ball. But 10th for missed tackles, so if you're 3rd for having to make tackles and you're 3rd for missing tackles, it means you're probably kind of even, but defensively, they were able to make those tackles and miss fewer than they should have. So having to make more tackles than other teams, but not missing as many as other teams. So defensively, that seems all right. 13th for line breaks conceded, which again goes to the defense. 12th for errors, so they weren't making too many errors with the ball. 2nd for kicks in play, and 2nd for kick meters. So that was definitely a strategy. They were only behind the Jaguares for the kicking that they were doing from hand. It wasn't always the best, but it was a tactic they were employing. And it's quite a change from, if you remember, when Checker had them a few years ago and he wouldn't even let them kick the ball. So it's been a bit of a shift around. And unfortunately for them this season, it wasn't able to get it done. Many of their stats, to be fair, were quite middling. Like a lot of the key stats that you would look at in terms of their overall performance, they were just average at a lot of stuff. Bad stats, they were 11th for points scored. So again, they finished 12th and the points scored was 11th, so that kind of makes sense. If you can't score the points, you're not likely to get the wins. 10th for tries, again, that kind of goes with points. If you can't score tries, you're not going to get as many points. 13th for getting over the advantage line, so whilst they were making lots of tackles and not missing many tackles, they weren't able to do that much with the ball. 11th for going 7 phases, which is a strange one given that their error rate was low. But if they're kicking the ball that much, it's possible they weren't looking to go more than 7 phases before putting boot to ball. 10th for line breaks, again, speaks to that, not able to punch forward. 15th dead last for tackle bust. So that's where you miss a guy like Naya Ravoro, who was that kind of wrecking ball in that season that went well. They didn't have that direct replacement this year. 4th for conceding the advantage line. So although they were making tackles, the other team was still coming forward. 14th for winning penalties, so they weren't able to put that much pressure on the opposition there. And 11th for conceding penalties, so both of those kind of at the wrong end of the ledger. So, I mean, in terms of individuals, your top try score was Rona with 6, and 6 is not all that hot, to be fair. Folau, from 7 games that he played, he was the 4th average run meter getter in all of Super Rugby, so pretty impressive numbers. For average line breaks, he was 4th as well. He was the 9th guy for average tackle busts per game and 1st for offloads per game. So that guy, in the games that he played, was having a big impact on what the Waratahs were doing. I think a lot of their play was built around him, and a lot of that kicking, it's a tactic that Gibson employed effectively last year as well, was to put him in positions where he could compete for the ball in an attacking mindset. So the fact that he only played 7 of the 16 games is perhaps a bit of a detriment, but I will have a look in a second how their results went with and without him. In terms of Michael Hooper, he was the top tackler for Super Rugby in terms of average tackles. He made about 16 tackles per game, it was 15.9. But he was less effective at the breakdown with only one pilfer every 5 games. And, he is in that Wallabies squad as number 7. You would like to think he is able to put on a whole bunch of pressure at the breakdown. If you compare that to David Pocock, who is the natural guy you compare to, he was at 0.7 pilfers per game. So almost one a game, pretty much every 2 games. More than every 2 games, he's getting a pilfer. So Michael Hooper at 0.2 is way down there, so not able to exert as much pressure there. In comparison, also, Adi Savia was at 0.8, so almost a pilfer per game. Sam Cane, for the limited games that he played, was actually at 1 pilfer per game. So, yeah, although he's monstering the tackles, not able to exert that pressure. And that links also to that not able to win penalties at the breakdown too. So, yeah, a lot of middling stuff, a fair bit of poor stuff, some positives, but not enough overall. If you look at the results, there's a few that stand out, but they lost to the Hurricanes at home in the opener only by a point, so 19 points to 20. That was close. They beat the Sunwolves away in Japan, again, only by a point, so that was perhaps a lucky one. If I think it was Carmichael Hunt hadn't charged down Hayden Parker, or at least put him off his drop goal, they might have lost that one. So I guess it's a mixture of results there. A game that's a decent loss, but then a lucky win. They beat the Reds at home 28-17. They lost to the Brumbies away 19-13. So 2 wins, 2 losses to start the season. Big game in their 5th game, which was a win over the Crusaders at home, 20 points to 12. Of course, there had been that Christchurch tragedy a couple of weeks beforehand, so it's potential that was possible the Crusaders guys were a wee bit off their game, maybe a lot off their game. It was pretty scrappy, and the Waratahs definitely made fewer errors in that one. But they follow up that massive win over the Crusaders with a loss to the Sunwolves at home, 29-31. Sunwolves get that one done. So that kind of epitomizes the Waratahs season. Top and bottom, they can do everything, but not be consistent. They lose to the Blues away, and that was Israel Folau's last game for the Waratahs. So in the games that Folau played, it was 3 wins and 4 losses. So again, kind of a below average record, but just below kind of breaking even. They follow up that game with a win over the Rebels at home, and we said Reds, 23 points to 20. So that was a pretty good victory for them, especially with all that Folau stuff going on in the background. The guys were able to still get the job done. Then they go on a away tour of South Africa. They lose to the Sharks. They lose to the Bulls. Sorry, the Sharks game was at home. That was a disappointing loss. Then the tour of South Africa. They lose to the Bulls. They lose to the Lions. So 3 South African teams in a row, and they lose them all. They beat the Reds away. They lost to the Jaguares. Got another good win over the Rebels in their 14th game. Lost to the Brumbies, and then a pretty bad loss against the Highlanders. The last game of the season where they really needed to get a win to potentially qualify for the playoffs. And they lost that one 49 points to 12, so it was a bit of a hiding. So the record without Folau was 3 wins and 6 losses. With Folau was 3 wins and 4 losses. So it's not a huge difference, but obviously their record was slightly better with Israel Folau playing. I guess key points from that record, again, good wins over the Rebels, who were looking like a strong Aussie team. They had the wood over them. The only team they beat outside the Aussie Conference was the Crusaders. That one win was the only one they got. All their other wins came over Aussie Conference teams, and they lost to the Sunwolves. So I would say they lost to the Sunwolves, and that loss away to the Highlanders in that last game, and the manner of that defeat really, really set them back. And those are the 2 results that I would look back on and say were pretty poor. So as nice as it is to beat the Crusaders, you got to get more results than that. Next season, it's going to be a much changed Waratahs lineup. You got the likes of Kepu, Phipps, Foley, the Folau brothers. None of them are going to be playing. They're going to have a new coach because Gibson has stepped down from his contract a year early. They are getting one guy in. It's Tepai Moeroa in from Rugby League. So I'm not sure how he got 15s. He's talking big, talking about getting the Bledisloe back to Australia. So cool. Confidence. Guys who are staying, Harry Johnston Holmes is a really good one to keep around because he has come along really nicely. Tom Robertson's still going to be there. Simmons, for better or worse, is still going to be there. Staniforth, Dempsey, Hooper, Jake Gordon, Mac Mason. Mac Mason needs to come a long way. Alex Newsom, still not sure about Beale. Apparently they're confident that he's going to stay, but I guess we'll wait and see. Adam Ashley Cooper, what's happening with him? Probably going to go. Holloway, that's a question as well. So who's going to be their coach? Remains a pretty big question. So lots of questions for the Waratahs next year. They still have a bit of a core squad, a bunch of forwards who are staying around, which is nice. Question of number 10 is going to be a big one. If Beale stays, does he move into 10? Not sure. Mac Mason, not sure he's Super Rugby ready, but I guess we'll see. He'll probably get a bit of NRC time under his belt before next season as well. So, yeah, not the best season for the Waratahs. The fact that their home games were dispersed all across New South Wales this season didn't help. They didn't have a stable home ground to play from, so I'll take that into consideration as well. Decent against the Aussie teams. Had the wood over the Reds, had the wood over the Rebels, 50-50 against the Sunwolves. They lost both of their games against the eventual Aussie Conference winners, the Brumbies. And yeah, only that one win over the Crusaders. Not many teams did well against the Crusaders this year, so I guess you take that as one bright spot. But yeah, overall, they just weren't able to get it done. What do you guys think? How much effect do you think the Folau saga had on the Waratahs season, or that moving around to the home ground? Do you think that was a big factor? How do you think the Waratahs are going to go next year? It is still a bit of a question. I guess who would you like to see coaching? I have to have a look around to see who the favourites are for that, because I haven't had a search around for a bit yet. But yeah, I guess we will see what happens. You guys let me know your thoughts, and yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.